few minutes, right? Are you guys up for a little exploration? Okay. So one of the things that we do in the eco-psychology training is that we keep a field journal. And throughout each of these segments, of which diversity is just one that we actually study over a several-month period of time, we can ask questions. And we can start to unearth places of diversity or lack of diversity within ourselves. You want to do a little of that?
Yeah.
All right. So, initial questions, and I'll just give you some of these, and you can take it with them and work on them on your own. It's kind of what I call taking inventory, and you can think about it at another time, because the few minutes that I have left, I want to work some more difficult material with you, since you're such a savvy and sophisticated audience. So, some very light questions that you can entertain with yourself at a later time would be, how many places do you visit each week that are different? Do you eat at different restaurants, or do you eat different food? Do you tend to eat the same things? What kind of books do you read? Do you read the same mystery writer all the time? Do you read the same books all the time? I don't even want to go into all authors. Do you listen to the same type of music? Do you hang out with the same people? What colors do you wear? You tend to wear the same kind of colors, same kind of clothes. How many times do you get into the natural world? How many times do you go into the wilderness? Can you imagine in your mind? Okay, here's a more difficult question. I'll slow down with this one. Imagine in your mind someone who threatens you. Imagine, or can you, cultivate someone who scares you, frightens you? There's a little difference between that and threatening.
A physical kind of thing?
Excuse me?
Is it physical or emotional or different? Take a bit. So take a bit of time.
Imagine someone who makes you feel laughter or joy. Imagine someone who makes you feel ugly. Imagine someone who makes you feel loved. Imagine someone you hate. Can you imagine hatred? If you can imagine love, can you imagine hatred? Do you feel uneasy when asked to make changes? Do you allow yourself to fantasize, daydream? Who is your wild woman? Who is your wild man? Internally, I'm talking internally. Don't say your neighbor. Let it sit next to you. Who are you as father, mother, sister, brother, husband, wife, lover, friend, therapist? If you know who is your main archetype, who runs your show? Who runs your show? It's probably not one. Usually archetypes don't do a single show, too. They work with me. Do you think you can mourn? What in you do you hate? What in you scares you? What in you makes you feel joy? What in you do you love? What in you makes you feel safe? Who is the predator in you? Who is a predator? This is a tough one. Who is the prey? It's an easy one because we all tend to identify with the victim more than the predator. It's somehow nicer to be a victim than to be a predator. Who is courageous in you? Who is cowardly in you? These questions, and there's, multitude of questions, these questions have to be entertained and thought about respectfully. They have to be contemplated and reflected and circumambulated without judgment. Otherwise, you're going to stop sort of the composting process. If the inner critic kicks in while you're trying to do some of this work, it'll stop the breaking down process, potentially. So be mindful of how you engage this and how you engage these questions, even with yourself, and without judgment on the self. That's what I meant by brutally honest. Can you be brutally honest with yourself? Thank you. Thank you.
Questions and answers.
Oh boy.
We have time for questions and answers. You have a loud voice.
That's before the ayahuasca. Afterwards.
Laurie, you said at the beginning, or near the beginning, ecologically, the most invisible places are most diverse, which I thought was very interesting. I just wondered if you could elaborate on that, whether you could elaborate either or both really, examples within ecological systems, but also how that would then work within the psyche too.
And before I do this, I just want to introduce one of my colleagues who's also a phenomenal ecopsychologist, Betsy Perlis. She also teaches ecopsychology, so Betsy can add to this conversation as well, too. So feel free to jump in. So one of the best examples I can give, and that's a good question, Paul, of these ecological sort of outer places that hold the most diversity is, do you remember the fence that was put up between Berlin, East Berlin and West Berlin? Well, that area now is what we know as one of the richest ecological diversity zones in the world because no one was allowed in there. And there's other places around the world where people were not allowed. And they were between war zones. Between war zones. Human war zones. Some of our most ecologically diverse places. And to tack onto that idea, this idea about the extremophiles, it's not an idea, the science of extremophiles, the ecology of extremophiles are organisms that live in very harsh environments, and that is a recent discovery. We did not know that 5-10 years ago. We did not even know about thermal vents until the 70s, when Alvin, remember the first robotic little dude, went down to the ocean, and so they saw these vents coming up, and all of a sudden, they realized, wow, there's something else down in the deep ocean besides just sand and water. And of course, there was thousands of species there too that we didn't know about. But these thermal vents are very not only toxic places, but no other organism can live there. And so we thought initially it was just an environmental dead zone. And then we had science progressed, we had more instruments developed, we went down there again, and we realized, oh wow, this place is teeming with organisms. But they're only found there.
unseen by us, I mean by people.
Well, the Amazon is one of the places, and there may be other people that can speak to this more eloquently than I. I can only speak to it, a little bit with what I know of that, which is limited. Is that actually the Amazon is a place where there's huge amounts of diversity loss.
Yeah,
so it's not
diversity there.
Yeah, there is diversity there in the rainforest. Of course, the tropical forests contain most of the diversity,
right.
In the world. But
unseen.
The Amazon is an example of where there's huge amounts of diversity lost due to population invasion. Would you say that, Betsy?
In the Amazon?
Yeah.
I don't know much about the Amazon, but that's what I read and that's what I hear is incredible diversity. I can't even fathom how quickly it's losing its diversity.
Yeah, because of the deforestation, mostly.
Yeah.
But the waterways too. We've lost a number of large animals